So I'd like to talk to you about the background of culture surveys in general in their use in medicine, and focus specifically then on the surgical safety checklist culture survey that we want you to give. So the big reason for doing a survey like this is to figure out what's going on in your hospital. And although I know that you all sit right in the middle of your operating rooms and you have a reasonably good sense of the culture that exists in your operating rooms, I think a lot of times asking the questions and getting the answers, particularly on an anonymous survey, will tell you things that you might not have been able to predict ahead of time in terms of the way that people look at the safety of the care that they provide, the effectiveness of the care that they provide, the way they feel about their jobs and the place that they work. So the very first thing that we want to do is figure out how fertile is the soil. And Lizzie found me these two beautiful pictures from the Napa Valley that show the beginning of fields ripped down just to the soil, and then below the beautiful vineyard growing probably from the looks of it in midsummer, probably just now becoming heavy with grapes. And the picture on the bottom could never have happened unless they spent a whole ton of time up on the top getting that soil ready. And there's a lot of money in these grapes these days, so believe me, they spend a lot of time figuring out, is the soil ready for the grapes? And we need to do the same kind of thing in your hospitals. We need to figure out what the culture is like, and there's two big reasons for that. One is we need to know where you are, because that'll help make a plan for where you want to be. And then the second is to be able to look back when we do this work and see if we've made things better. And I'm going to show you how some other people have actually done that. So this slide comes from some work that comes out of Johns Hopkins, based in the state of Michigan. I'm sure that if there are quality people on the line here, they are well aware of the central line checklist and the project that is called CLABSI, which is all about central line acquired bloodstream infections and reducing them. This is work that's been done in the intensive care unit. And the Hopkins group has been particularly sensitive to the fact that the culture of an ICU actually can be directly tied to how dangerous the ICU is for the patient in terms of the patient getting an infected catheter. And this survey, while it's similar to our survey, is really meant for an intensive care unit. So it's different in some ways than the one that we'll talk about for our operating room. Now what I want to draw your attention to is that what's shown on the slide is two different years that this culture survey was done, in 2004 and 2006. And the interesting results, the ones that are statistically significant, show that over time, by working hard on the culture in those intensive care units, they actually have been able to get people to feel a different way about the safety level in their units and about the work that they actually do. So we could pick one of these out where there's been significant change and look at it in detail. And one of them is, I receive appropriate feedback about my performance. That improved tremendously over that 2-year period of time. I'm encouraged by my colleagues to report any patient safety concerns I may have. Clearly, something that you want to have happen in a hospital and doesn't always happen, and by doing this work, they were able to change it. We want to be able to help you show the same kinds of change in your hospital through the culture survey that we'd like to help you give. So, I want to take another look from a different angle at the surprising things, or maybe not so surprising things, that you can find by asking these kinds of questions. This comes from a paper by one of my friends at Hopkins, Marty Macri, called Teamwork is in the Eye of the Beholder. And I think there's some fascinating findings in that paper, and you can see one of them here on the first slide, and that is, these are bar graphs that show how the surgeon rates the teamwork of the other people who work with them in the operating room. Surgeon rates surgeon. Hey, we're pretty good team members. Surgeon rates anesthesiologists. Anesthesiologists are pretty good teammates. Surgeon rates a nurse. They get the high score. Surgeon rates CRNA. The surgeons think they're doing a great job. We all work together great as a team until we turn the table and we ask the nurses how the nurses rate the surgeons and how the surgeons rate the nurses. And here you can see a stark contrast. So the surgeons standing in the operating room think their teamwork is just great, and so is everybody else's. And the nurses, less than half, are sure that that's the case. So what this says, and if we find this in your hospital, it says that there is a gap. There's an issue. And what we'd like to have is those two bars look exactly the same. We'd like to have all the nurses believe that the surgeons are good teammates, and all the surgeons believe that the nurses are good teammates, and that everybody's doing good teamwork.